there's one thing all of the gym bros in the world fear when they go to do their bench press. You feel good, you slept well, you just watched your favorite anime before hitting the gym. Everything looks perfect. And you feel it, it's finally time to PR your bench press. You're warming up, increasing the weights, but then suddenly it happens. You know it, you feel it, the pain is lingering in your shoulder. Just when you thought you had the perfect circumstances, it just ruined everything. But don't worry. Today I'm going to do a list of the 5 tips to erase your shoulder pain when you bench press. These tips revolve around technique and positioning, but also smart training choices. I personally followed them since I started bench pressing in my powerlifting career, and I attribute my years of good training to them. So without further ado, let's see together the best 5 tips to bench press without shoulder pain. Number 1, we need to talk about the position of your shoulders. That's something you already saw me do because I already have a couple of videos on that topic, but the position you have to create before bench pressing is this position with the shoulders back. And I'm sure most of you already know that. But the problem is you don't simply want your shoulders back, you also want them down. And the reasoning for that is sometimes some people exaggerate this shoulder back position, and if you simply put your shoulder back, at some point you can see my shoulder start to slightly raise up. And with the shoulders being elevated, meaning your shoulders being up, when you go to bench press, it can create a lot of stress on that joint. So in order to fix that, remember this cue is, yeah, you do want to have your shoulders back, but you most importantly want to have them down as well. And that's something you should not overlook because this pure, simple first aspect, if you're not mastering that correctly, it can be the whole reason of your shoulder pain. Number 2 is transferring that position over to the bench press. You know, it's pretty straightforward to simply put your shoulders slightly back and down without any barbell at the end of your hand. But it's something completely different when you're starting to set up on the bench press with a heavy barbell at the end. My goal right now is to give you the most simple cue that I use in order to be able to transfer that position over to you laying down on the bench press. I already have a full-on tutorial on how to set up properly for the bench press available on this channel. It will be linked in the description, so if you want the full breakdown of a powerlifting bench press setup, go check that out. But right now, my goal is to just give you this simple, quick, effective cue that you can use in order to start bench pressing without any shoulder pain. The problem most people have, and especially beginners, is that they will try to forcefully push the bar up, and by doing so, they will roll their shoulders forward. On the contrary, what you want to do is you want to let the bar sink your shoulders into the bench press. Here, I'm not fighting the bar, and it's actually pushing, it's actually shoving my shoulders into the bench press, which creates a lot of stability for me. And from this position, I can bench press a lot of weight while keeping my shoulders healthy. The cue you need to understand is if whenever you go to unrack the bar, you do this motion, you put your shoulders out of the position we want to create, and this is probably why your shoulders hurt when you're doing your movement. It's because they don't have a stable surface to bench press from. So if you do the contrary, if you do the opposite and you let the bar sink your shoulders into the bench press, you're actually recreating this position I showed you a bit earlier, and you're doing that at the moment you're about to bench press. So you're doing it at the best moment possible because, again, creating this position standing up is something, and being able to master and use this position at the moment you're going to bench press is something different. And that's exactly what we want to achieve here. So the cue is, do not fight the bar, let the bar position your shoulders, let the gravity anchor your shoulders into the bench. Number 3, make sure you're able to maintain this position throughout your repetitions. Again, it's pretty easy to do it when you're standing up. It's pretty easy to have a proper setup, to have a proper unracking of the bar. But if at the moment you start to lower the bar until it touches your chest, if your shoulder rolls forward, once again, all of this positioning we just did was for nothing, and that's probably why you're experiencing this pain in the first place. Because during the bench press, you want your shoulders into the bench, you want your shoulders down and back at every motion, at every centimeter, at every inch of the whole rep. Here I'm well positioned, but as soon as I start to lower the bar, my shoulders roll forward, as you can see here, now I'm not in a good position. And if I'm doing reps and reps and reps and sets with this position, that's actually how I can cause some damage. I can cause some stress on my shoulders, and that's why I cannot bench press properly without any pain. So make sure you keep this position. And the cue that I like is imagine as if it's a spring. So whenever you're starting to lower the bar towards you, imagine your pecs are a spring and you're just simply stretching your pec on the way down, keeping your shoulders in a good position, and then pushing back up. And when you push back up, you don't want to roll your shoulders while doing so. You want to keep them back and down the whole time. So here, and not like that, or on the contrary, like that. And if you make sure your shoulders are well positioned throughout the rep on the eccentric phase, so lowering the weight towards you, but also on the concentric phase, so pushing the weights away from you, if you do so, you'll probably be able to bench press without any shoulder pain. Number 4, make sure you don't overtuck your elbows when you're doing your bench press. So I know it's a cue I've seen online where people are like, oh, you can use your lats in order to use your lats. Imagine you want to break the bar and you want to lower the weights. If you go to imagine you want to break the bar and you lower yourself, the first thing that happens is your shoulder roll forward. On the contrary, if you are more relaxed with your elbows, you can maintain this good position. Whenever I'm trying to actively squeeze the bar, like break the bar, if I go to lower it, it's almost impossible to keep this good shoulder position. My advice would be do not overtuck your elbows. It's not necessary. There's another problem with that. If you overtuck your elbows, all of a sudden you don't have a proper joint stacking, meaning you don't have your wrist, your elbow and your shoulder on a straight line, which is better in terms of force production and force transfer also. So when you're bench pressing, make sure your elbows simply follow the path of your wrist and your shoulders, and do not try to actively break the bar, because again, it will make your shoulder roll forward, and from this position you cannot bench press a lot of weight, and you cannot bench press without putting a lot of stress on the shoulders, because again, what creates this stress is your shoulders moving around when you're doing your motion, or your shoulders losing positioning. When you're doing a squat, when you're doing a deadlift, you want to be as stable as possible, you want to be as tight as possible, and that's the exact same thing with the bench press. So if you go to overtuck your elbows, you lose that position. One final point in order to be properly ready to hit your bench press PRs. Do not simply add weight without proper warm-up. The goal when you're going to hit your PR, the goal when you're doing your bench press is to have your body warm, nice and ready in order to lift heavy. If whenever you step foot in the gym, you immediately load the barbell, you immediately get under it, you won't be ready physically to perform a good motion. Even if mentally you're ready because you watched your favorite anime the night before, lately Solo Leveling is an absolute banger. You know, it's a lot of hype, but your body needs also to be ready. So make sure you're doing a pyramid ramp up, meaning start with, for instance, one plate, do between 5 to 8, maybe 10 reps, and then you slightly add weight and slightly do repetitions. For instance, my warm-up is I go 70 kilos, I do between 5 to 8 reps, then I go 100 kilos, I do between 5 to 8 reps, I go 120 kilos, again do between 5 to 8 reps, and so on and so forth. So you don't go from 70 kilos to 150 kilos, you have all of those steps in between, and the goal is to accumulate those reps in order to have your joint, in order to have your muscles nice and ready when it's time to hit those big numbers. But at the same time, every set you do is an opportunity for you to improve your technique, to improve your position. And again, if you understood throughout this video, the positioning and the techniques that we use when we lift weights, especially when we lift heavy weights, is one of the most important things. So by adding sets to your training, you're actually killing two birds with one stone, because first, you have your body nice, warm and ready, and also you can have a lot of chances to improve your technique, to improve your feelings, to make sure when you're setting up on the bench, you have this nice position of your shoulders. Make sure you're able to keep this position throughout. And if at some point you do a slight mistake, you can see that mistake and you can account for that and make sure that it won't happen on the next weights, on the next sets. So make sure you don't go crazy by just loading more plates. Train properly, accumulate reps, accumulate sets, and then go hit your big numbers. I wanted to conclude this video with 2 more advice. Number 1, make sure if the pain that you have is recurrent, so you're pretty much in pain for weeks and weeks, make sure you have a proper PT, doctor, whatever, somebody that's its job to know what's happening to your body and that can give you advice tailored to you. That's number 1. Number 2 is sometimes we have pain, then we don't have any more pain, we go to train, and then if whenever you go to train, you do as if nothing happened, meaning let's say my max was 120, I was doing sets of 5 reps with 100 kilos before being in pain and having to take a couple of weeks off. If whenever I step foot in the gym, I immediately do the exact same thing, what will happen is I will re-trigger the exact same problems that triggered me not going to the gym for 2 weeks to begin with. So make sure you're accumulating stress, you're accumulating volume properly, and make sure you're not overdoing what your body can recover from. Imagine your body's ability to recover is like a glass. If whenever you're training, you're just pouring it full and then you go back to train the other day and you add more water, that won't go. So make sure the recovery abilities that you have, that you properly adjust the weights, the volume, the intensity over the course of the week. Do not go bonkers on the first session of the week and then you're fried for the rest of the week, but you still want to train, so you overdo it and then it's, just the snake that eats its own tail again and again and again. If that happened to you, accept to lower the weights and build yourself back up in order to be able to have a full-on recovery for what happened. And again, if you make sure that you follow the aspects I talked to you about in this video, I'm assuring 99.9% of you will be able to bench press pain-free, because that has been the case for me and that has been the case for a lot of athletes that I coached over the year. If you have proper shoulder positioning and proper bench press technique, you're reducing the risk of shoulder pain, shoulder injury by a lot. So if you make sure to follow those steps, I'm sure you'll be 99.9% good, as long as you don't do something crazy like doing 20 sets of heavy bench press every session, every time you step foot in the gym. I just mentioned that having a proper program is important, and that's where I want to talk about the bench press program I just recently released. It's a program that I followed in order to bench press for 5 pounds, and it's a program that has proper stress management. So on some sessions, it'll go somewhat heavy, but it will be balanced by some other sessions where it be lighter stuff, more volume work, more power building work, and then more practice work. So to put it up simply, it's a program I heavily recommend to any of you guys that want to invest on the bench press. With just one monthly subscription, you can access the program and more than 15 other powerlifting programs unlimited, and you don't have any engagement. So you can try the program, do it for a couple of months, and if you want to try something else, you can simply stop your subscription. So if you want to take your bench press to the next level, make sure you go to thepanache.app and try out the brand new bench press program I just released. That was it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I hope it was helpful. If that's the case, the best way to let me know is write down a nice comment, whether it's about the advice I just gave, whether it's about the good editing that my editor is doing, whether it's about the nice t-shirt that I have. Leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.